What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and we're back to conclude Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's 40th Symphony, as performed by the Berlin Philharmonic and conducted by Herbert von Karajan. And if you're into these types of reactions, you've got a treat coming in the following several days, which is further to say, starting tomorrow and spinning to probably Friday, I'm going to be doing exclusively classical music reactions in a series I'm calling Classical Days. Indeed, there's been some folks asking about different pieces. Someone has mentioned Tchaikovsky's First Piano Concerto many times. I will be doing that. I have a Beethoven symphony or two lined up. I've got Bizet, Brahms, some Dvorak, Smetana. There are all sorts of pieces coming of all different types. So yes, if you're into classical music reactions and you've enjoyed those on my channel up until now, there's a particularly exciting series of days ahead. And this will serve as a gateway to that. I wanted to make sure that I finish this symphony before we begin Classical Days, so we are here to transition into that special period. And the final movement of Mozart's 40th Symphony is Finale, and then, parenthetically, Allegro Assai. So a finale, that's pretty clear, pretty straightforward. Allegro Assai essentially means very fast, very vivacious, very lively. So yes, the final movement in form is clearly suggested by that musical direction. As with movements 2 and 3, I don't recall this one in advance. It's the first movement of this symphony that I know very well and I've heard many, many times. Now, to be fair, I have listened to the whole symphony before, so I have heard this movement, but far fewer times than the opening movement, and as we go to begin this reaction, I can't really think of the main melody or particular motif, so it'll be very fresh to me as well. Let's give it a listen. This is Mozart's 40th Symphony, the last movement, which is a finale Allegro Assai, and it's performed by the Berlin Philharmonic and conducted by Herbert von Karajan. Beautiful. It is another shorter movement. Does it say on here? I think it does. Yeah, so about 4.5 minutes, which in the grand scheme of symphonic movements is not terribly lengthy, but at the same time, I think it does a lot in those 4.5 minutes. And indeed, I think it uses most of the orchestra very effectively. I don't think we hear timpani in there. I don't think there are like chimes, but most of, let's say, the regular sections of the orchestra are on display. Obviously, the strings, violins playing the major role. I think there's cellos in there as well. And they give us a lot of the substance of the movement, a lot of the lively, fast-paced energy of the movement. But there's also some crucial sections with other instrument types playing the lead. And indeed, one of the features that I notice in a lot of Mozart's compositions is on full display here, which is fast, energetic sections, quickly followed by smooth, slower, and melodic moments, and then alternating back and forth between those two sides of the intensity spectrum. But yes, we've got woodwinds. There's a moment where the flute really stands out, or flutes plural probably. I think that's maybe the most sparingly used section of the orchestra, but even then, it really does stand out. There's some horn work in there. So yes, lots of different parts of the orchestra playing key roles along the way, with the strings, again, doing most of the heavy lifting. And yes, it's just elegant and fiery at the same time. In a way, I suppose, like the fiery sections are anticipating some of the stylings that would become even more prominent in the following era, which is to say the Romantic era. But yes, it's got fire, it's got energy, but it also has smooth, what's the right word? Flowing sections, and again, offset against the more intense sections very well. So yes, I think it's very Mozart. I think it is a fitting capstone to a great symphony. And of course, I do understand the reason that the first movement is most notably known and performed. I understand why it's part of a lot of Mozart greatest hits compositions, or rather compilations, because that lead melody, it just really does stand out. But ultimately, I think the other movements and the symphony as a whole are just perfectly interlocking. They fit and are a great excursion, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So hats off to Amadeus Mozart. I think it's a dynamic and very vivacious performance. So hats off also to the Berlin Philharmonic and to the late and great Herbert von Karajan. And with this in tow, let us now proceed into the classical days. I will see you tomorrow as we kick that off. Peace.